Australia has one of the largest compulsory retirement saving systems on the planet. $4.4 trillion. That's not a typo. Every employer in the country is legally required to take 12% of your pay and put it into a super fund. Every single pay cycle, for your entire working life. The system has been running for over 30 years, and by now you'd think the average Australian would be retiring comfortably. They're not. The median super balance for someone between 60 and 64 years old in Australia right now is roughly $160,000. The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia says you need about $630,000 to retire comfortably as a single person. That's a gap of nearly $500,000 in a system that was literally designed to close that gap. So here's the question nobody seems to want to answer. If the government has been forcing your employer to save money for your retirement for 3 decades, why are most Australians still heading into retirement with less than they need? And if the answer isn't that they didn't save enough, because they did, the system made them, then what is the answer? If you've never really understood your super, if you've glanced at it on MyGov and felt a vague mix of confusion and guilt and then closed the tab, that's not a personal failing. I'd argue it's a design feature. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly what I mean. Here's what this video is really about. It's not a tutorial. It's not a list of tips. It's the answer to a contradiction that affects every working Australian and almost nobody talks about clearly. The contradiction is this. Australia built a system that guarantees money goes into your retirement, but it also built a system that guarantees most people will never engage with that money until it's too late to change the outcome. Those aren't two separate problems. They're the same problem. And understanding why they're the same problem is the single most useful thing you can learn about super. Now, let's start with the two ideas that are supposed to work together, but quietly work against each other. The first idea is compulsion. In 1992, the Australian government did something genuinely radical. It told every employer in the country, you must put a percentage of each worker's earnings into a retirement fund. Not optional, not suggested, required by law. The rate started at 3%. It's now 12%. As of July 2025, that's the legislated ceiling. The thinking was elegant. Australians are bad at saving voluntarily, so we'll take the decision away from them. We'll make it automatic. We'll build a system where you accumulate retirement savings, whether you think about it or not. And honestly, the structure of compulsory super is one of the smartest things any government has ever built. The problem is, it's also one of the worst explained. Because here's what compulsion actually does in practice. It makes you passive. Think about it. If someone told you, every week, money is being taken care of for your retirement, you don't need to do anything, would you do anything? Of course not. You'd assume it was sorted. You'd go back to worrying about rent and groceries and whether petrol is going to hit $2.50 a litre again. Super becomes the thing in the background, the thing you'll deal with later. Picture Sarah. She's 24, just landed her first full-time gig as a physio in Melbourne. HR hands her a stack of forms on day 1. One of them says, nominate your super fund. She's never heard of any of them. She doesn't know what makes one different from another. She picks the default, whatever that means, and moves on. 5 years later, she changes jobs. Nobody tells her she now has 2 super accounts, each one charging fees. 3 years after that, she moves again. Now she has 3. By the time she's 30, she has 4 accounts, each quietly bleeding money in administration and investment fees on balances she forgot existed. That's like paying 4 separate rents to store the same furniture. You don't get 4 times the storage, you get 4 times the bill. And that's the first principle. Compulsion works. Money goes in. But compulsion also teaches you that you don't need to pay attention. And that lesson costs more than most people will ever realize. The second idea is allocation. This is the part almost nobody talks about, and it matters more than everything else combined. where your super is invested, how it's allocated across different asset classes, what fees you're paying, and whether your investment option matches your age and your timeline. This is where the outcome actually gets decided. Here's the thing. Two people can earn the same salary, work the same job, contribute the same amount to super for 30 years, and retire hundreds of thousands of dollars apart. Not because one was smarter or luckier, because one of them at some point looked at their investment option and made a decision, and the other one didn't. I'm going to be honest. The first time I saw a product disclosure statement for a super fund, I closed it after page 3. It read like it was written by lawyers for other lawyers, which it probably was. But buried in that document is the single most important number in your financial life: your fee percentage. And the difference between a fund charging 0.7% and one charging 1.5% doesn't sound like much. It sounds like a rounding error. But the Productivity Commission found that a difference of just 0.5% in fees can cost a typical full-time worker around $100,000 by retirement. That's not a rounding error. That's a house deposit. Wait, let that land for a second. $100,000. Gone. Not because of a bad investment, not because of a market crash, because of a line item you never read in a document you never opened. That's wild when you think about it. So now we have the two principles in conflict. Compulsion says money goes in automatically. You don't need to think about it. Allocation says the only thing that matters is thinking about it. The system promises to handle your retirement and then gives you a set of decisions that determine everything, wrapped in documents nobody reads, using language nobody understands, inside a platform most people visit once a decade. And here's how the system tries to resolve this tension. It gives you a default. When Sarah picked the default fund on her first day, what she was actually picking was a pre-selected investment option, chosen by the fund, theoretically designed to be appropriate for most members. The idea is that if you never engage, the default should be good enough. And look, the defaults have improved. Since the Your Future, Your Super reforms, underperforming funds get tested and flagged. The government now publishes a comparison tool. APRA runs annual performance tests. There's more scrutiny than there's ever been. But here's what default actually means in practice. It means someone else made every important decision about your money. Which asset classes? What risk level? How much goes to Australian shares versus international shares versus bonds versus cash? What the fee structure looks like, and whether any of those choices still make sense for someone your age, with your timeline, with your goals. Picture Josh. He's 31, a tradie in Perth. One Sunday night, for no particular reason, he opens MyGov and clicks on Super. He sees a number. He doesn't know if it's good or bad. He Googles average super balance for my age, finds out he's below the median, feels a quick sting of something. Anxiety maybe, or just confusion. Closes the laptop. Doesn't think about it again for 2 years. When he finally logs into his fund's website, he discovers he's been in a conservative investment option since he was 22. Not because he chose conservative, because it was the default for the product his first employer used. He's 31. He's got 36 years until he can access this money, and his super has been sitting in an option designed for someone about to retire. That's not Josh's fault. Nobody told him. The system didn't send a notification. There was no alert, no nudge. No, hey, you're in an option that doesn't match your age. The information existed. It was in the product disclosure statement, the one that's 80 pages long. I know this is a lot. We're going to take it apart slowly because the next section is where it actually clicks. The system doesn't resolve the paradox. It manages it. Defaults are a band-aid on a structural wound. They exist because the system knows most people won't engage, and so it provides a minimum viable outcome for the disengaged majority. But minimum viable is not the same as good. And the gap between minimum viable and optimal is where hundreds of thousands of dollars disappear. Let me show you why it doesn't resolve it for real. 3 reasons. First, fees compound in the opposite direction to growth. Your super grows through compound returns. But fees compound too, just against you. Every year, fees are taken from your balance, which means next year's returns are calculated on a smaller number, which means the fee impact accelerates over time. It's a snowball in reverse. Compound interest on super is a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger every year. Fees are the sun. Given enough time, even a tiny bit of sun melts a lot of snow. Australians paid $34 billion in super fees in a single year. $34 billion. And most of them couldn't tell you what they paid. I had to double-check that number. Then I checked it again. Second, inertia is the default behavior, and the system is built around it. Every friction point in super, the jargon, the documents, the login process, the fact that your money is locked away until preservation age, all of it reinforces the same message. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. It'll sort itself out. And for some people, in some funds, with some investment options, it does sort itself out reasonably well. But for millions of Australians, leaving it alone means leaving money on the table. Or more accurately, leaving money in someone else's fee structure. Third, multiple accounts are still a massive problem. Despite years of stapling reforms, despite the ATO's consolidation tools, there are still millions of lost and duplicate super accounts in Australia, each one paying fees, each one dragging down the total. Sarah's 4 accounts aren't unusual, they're common, and every year those accounts exist, they shrink. Not because the investments are bad, because the fees don't stop. There's a whole rabbit hole about self-managed super funds that I'm not dragging you into today. That's a different video for a different headache. What matters here is the core system that affects the vast majority of working Australians. So, what does all of this mean for you, right now, in practical terms? It means the difference between retiring with $160,000 and retiring with $600,000 is not about earning more money. It's not about being a financial genius. It's about a handful of decisions that take less than an hour, made early enough for compound growth to do the work. Picture Priya. She's 42, a teacher in Adelaide. She's had the same super fund since her 20s. One afternoon, she gets curious and logs into her fund's website. She clicks on investment options. She discovers she's been in the conservative option for 17 years. Not because she's conservative, because that's where the system put her, and she never changed it. She finds a balanced option with higher growth exposure and lower fees. She models the difference over the next 25 years using a calculator on the Money Smart website. The number makes her sit down. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, possibly more, from one decision made on a Tuesday afternoon. That's the real revelation of this video. The system that guarantees money goes into your super is the same system that guarantees you'll never think about what happens to it. The compulsion that protects you from not saving is the same compulsion that teaches you not to engage. And the cost of not engaging isn't a vague concept. It's a 6-figure number with your name on it. This part still blows my mind. Not because it's complicated, because it's simple. And nobody showed any of us. Now, before we close, let me name the 5 things people get wrong about super, because every one of them comes from the same place, the assumption that the system handles everything. The first mistake: super takes care of itself. It doesn't. It accumulates. Whether it accumulates efficiently depends entirely on decisions you either made or didn't make. The second mistake: I don't have enough super to worry about. If your balance is small, fees eat a larger proportion of it. The less you have, the more it matters, not less. The third mistake: I'll sort it out closer to retirement. Compound growth rewards time, not intention. Every year of inertia costs exponentially more than the one before. Tom is 58, runs a small business in Hobart. He never did salary sacrifice because he always needed the money now. He runs the numbers on what an extra $50 a week would have done since he was 40. 18 years of compound growth inside a tax-advantaged structure. He doesn't say anything. He just stares at the screen. The fourth mistake. My super is in the default option, so it must be fine. Default means the option someone else chose for a generic version of you. It might be fine. It might be costing you a house deposit. The only way to know is to look. The fifth mistake. All super funds are basically the same. They are not. The Productivity Commission found that the gap between the best and worst performing funds could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars over a working life. That's not noise. That's the whole story. Every situation is different. What you've just learned is the framework, not the answer for your specific circumstances. Here's what you can do today. It's not complicated, and it takes less time than your weekly grocery run. Log into MyGov, click on ATO, click on Super, see how many accounts you have. If it's more than one, consolidate. Check your investment option. If you're under 50 and you're in a conservative option, ask yourself whether that matches your timeline. Look at your fees. Compare them to a couple of other funds using the Your Super comparison tool. And if you're in a position to do it, even a small salary sacrifice, $20 or $30 a week, makes a measurable difference over decades. One more thing worth knowing. As of July 2026 right now, Payday Super has kicked in. Your employer now has to pay your super contributions at the same time as your wages, not once a quarter like before. That means your money hits your fund faster, starts earning returns sooner, and any employer who isn't paying on time is easier to catch. It's the biggest structural change to super since it became compulsory, and most Australians have no idea it just happened. If you want to go deeper, the Barefoot Investor is a solid Australian-specific starting point. The MoneySmart website, run by ASIC, has free calculators, and the Productivity Commission's report on superannuation efficiency is heavy reading. But it's where a lot of the numbers in this video come from. So let's bring this home. You learned 3 things today. 1. Compulsory super guarantees that money goes in, but also guarantees that most people never engage with where it goes or what it costs. 2. The 3 levers you actually control are consolidation, investment option, and fees, and adjusting all 3 takes less than an hour. 3. The gap between retiring with $160,000 and retiring with $600,000 isn't about how much you earn. It's about whether you ever opened the tab and made the decisions the system was quietly hoping you'd make. Here's another way to think about super. It's not a product. It's not a fund. It's not even really a retirement account. It's a 40-year relationship with compound growth. And like any relationship, it rewards the people who show up. Most Australians will retire without ever understanding what their super was doing for 40 years. If you're now the person in your family who gets it, if you're the one who can explain to your housemate or your parents or your younger cousin why this actually matters, you've already changed the conversation. And that's the whole point of this video. Remember the beginning? $4.4 trillion in the system. 12% of every worker's pay, 30-plus years of compulsory contributions, and a median retirement balance that wouldn't last 5 years. The paradox isn't a mystery. It was never a mystery. The system works exactly as designed. It just wasn't designed for people who don't look. Now you've looked. This is general education, not personal financial advice. If you need advice tailored to your situation, speak to a licensed financial advisor.